from London. We're 2 weeks into 2019 now, and for a while I've been hinting that I've got a new language learning project for this year, and in a moment all will be revealed. I'm going to look in particular at my motivation and tell you why I think that's really important for you if you're starting a new language project, to get clear on motivation, but also looking at how I'm setting some clear intermediate goals along the way, which I think is also going to be really important for you if you're going to have something to aim for and some sort of routine in place to keep going when the initial enthusiasm starts to wear off. If you're new to the channel, hello, I'm Dr. Gareth Popkins, welcome. We don't just talk about my own language learning projects here. I often have language quick tips, more in-depth discussions of language methodology, and I review language learning materials. I've got interviews with inspiring language learners and teachers, reviews of language events, and a bit of language aware travel when I do it. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. Also, if you're a beginner at language learning and you want my free webinar training on how to really get off to a solid start, or if you're an intermediate language learner feeling a bit stuck and you want to take your language learning to the next level, you can get the training by following the link underneath this video. So, what's my project? Well, I'm going to be learning this year, drum roll, Japanese. It's a biggie. I'm feeling quite overwhelmed as I stand at the bottom of the mountain looking up. But it's not an accident that I've decided to learn Japanese. I've got really clear on my motivation before I start. And I think that makes, as I'm saying, a lot of sense for you if you're starting a new language too. They always say that there are two types of motivation: extrinsic, where you have to learn the language because of the demands of a job, or perhaps it's a citizenship exam, or you're in a relationship with somebody speaking the language, but you don't necessarily particularly want to do it. And intrinsic motivation, which is stronger, which comes from within. I'm a language enthusiast, and you won't be surprised that for me the motivation here is intrinsic. Nobody's making me learn Japanese. I don't need it for my job. I'm attracted to it because it's a unique language, the language of a vast, ancient, but also exciting modern culture, with an intriguing and very different writing system, with interesting sound system as well. I've been reading it's got something called pitch accent, which I have not come across before. It doesn't have the tones that you have in Chinese, but I want to find out about this in what is otherwise a relatively simple, I gather, sound system in the language. Also, as a language teacher and mentor, I think I'm going to be able to help people who are learning languages such as Japanese or Chinese with a vastly different writing system and from a completely different cultural sphere more effectively if I've had a go myself. So that's just another reason why I'd like to get stuck into a language. But I've been vaguely attracted to Japanese for quite a while. What's brought this to the front now? Why am I starting now? Well, there's a clear goal on the horizon, and that's the Polyglot Conference. I like to attend this event every year. I've vlogged from it several times, and the next one is going to be in Fukuoka in Japan towards the end of October. So I'm going to take that as a reason to make my first ever visit to Japan. Although the conference itself is a couple of days, I'm going to try and take a couple of weeks and travel around the country. And my goal then, my vision goal if you like, is to have a good basic survival knowledge of the language when I arrive in Japan in October. I'm already starting to imagine myself clearly being able to buy rail tickets, maybe order food in restaurant, dealing with check-in at hotels and having basic conversations in the language. That's quite a modest goal, but Japanese is a difficult language for native English speakers to learn. So it's important, I think, for me not to bite off more than I can chew at this stage. If I enjoy it and have a good experience in Japan, then I'm quite sure I'd want to take the language further. But if you're starting a new language too, try and get a vision of where you want to take it. And I think that can help inspire you as you go. That's the mountain I want to climb, if you like, but I'm going to break it up into legs, or if you like, staging posts up the hill. And I sort of contrast then my vision goal with what I call my path goals. And given that October is 10 months, but let's say 9 months away, because life will get in the way, I'm sure, I'm splitting it up into three-month sections. I'm going to try and get a good habit going with my language learning, doing at least half an hour a day on the language, a really focused study, some more relaxed exposure to audio on top of that. And I'm going to be doing this half an hour a day at least 6 times a week. So that's going to be about 3.5 hours in total. The total I'm going to clock up is about 130 hours. At this point, I think it's useful to have a reality check, keep it real, because to pass the lowest Japanese language proficiency test, it's called the N5, you need to have 450 hours under your belt. So I'm still going to be very much a beginner come October. I still think though that there's real progress that I can make in this period if, as I say, I'm breaking up my overall vision into a series of 3-month path goals. And the way I'm going to make sure that I make progress during this time, as well as having the habit of the regular study slots, is to set myself SMART goals. They are goals that are specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic and time-bound. We've got the time-bound bit here, and I'm going to use a textbook series, Japanese from Zero, to help me to get specific, clear action that I can take. And obviously it's realistic because this book I'm going to be starting with, volume 1, is, as the title suggests, for complete beginners. There are actually 5 levels in this series, 5 books, and I've worked out that if I do a chapter a week, I can get through the first book in my first 3-month period. So that's my SMART goal, to get on top of this content 3 months from now. Then I can do the same in the second 3-month period with the second volume, and the same with the third volume, which then I'm aiming to have completed before I actually go to Japan. I think using a textbook makes a lot of sense when you're a complete beginner, providing you use it creatively. You're not, hide-bound by it, and you might supplement it with other materials. There are other ways to go if you just find it too boring and you want a more ragged-edged approach to language learning. That's good too. But I like the structure and the overview that a textbook provides. For me, I sort of feel, why reinvent the wheel at the beginning? We all need to get the basic structures and the core vocabulary. And that's the same for everybody, really, more or less, when you're starting, isn't it? And it says on the back here that this first volume covers 800 words, which is quite a lot of words. You can do quite a lot with 800 words when you're starting out. There's another book I'm using initially, and that's Heisig's Remembering the Kana. This is a book which uses mnemonics for the 2 phonetic Japanese writing systems. And then when I've got through that, I'll be moving on to the larger volume of Heisig's, which deals with the kanji, which are the Chinese characters which are used in Japanese as well. So these 2 textbooks are going to give me a lot of structure to carry me along each stage of my journey. I'm also exploring other materials. I want to look at Assimil, see what they have on offer, and look, of course, online as well for YouTube materials. There are some that go with Japanese from Zero, other things looking maybe at podcasts, and particularly to help using audio material to help me with the pronunciation in the early stages. Do spend some time when you're starting a new language getting a body of attractive materials that are useful and interesting for you, but don't overwhelm yourself. That's what I'd say, and that's what I'm trying to do with this new language. I'm happy so far, in a couple of weeks into Japanese from Zero, with what I've seen of the book. One other thing I wanted to mention was that I'm probably going to use online teachers a bit less in the early stages than I have done with my Basque. I sort of feel it might be more efficient for me as quite an experienced language learner and somebody who doesn't mind getting on his own to get some of the structures and patterns and a good basic vocabulary in my head before I start paying for a lot of conversational practice, which obviously I'm going to need, and the more the better at a certain stage in my language learning. So my feeling is I'm going to delay that slightly this time on this project and see how that compares then with what I did with Basque and Icelandic, which was to get speaking as much as possible even when I didn't have the vocabulary. In the coming months then here on the channel, my Japanese project will be part of the mix. What I'm thinking of doing is an update towards the end of every month, looking back at what I've achieved and telling you about my plans for the upcoming month. And then maybe the occasional additional video looking at materials, particular problems I'm coming up against, or maybe even having some interviews with some expert Japanese teachers. That then is my project. Wish me luck. If you haven't told me yet about your project or your language learning plans for 2019, then let me know in the comments below. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for the vibe, throw me a thumbs up, batter that bell, and share or be square. Sorry ja, mata.